Alright, so the whole reason we pulled this out in the first place was because one of the tubes was shorter than the other, and I assumed that they had cut one of the tubes and they couldn't get it to fit. What I now think has happened, because if you look at this tube, the way it's bent, it's actually at a very unusual angle, and I think what happened was, I think that they forced the gear case up at the position, and this was going into that, what was a blind hole, had no place to go, and literally I think they just bent this whole tube. So I think that this tube actually, if it was straightened out, because according to the parts diagram, from what I could see, I think it showed one of these tubes had a dog leg in it, this one here, and the other one, it almost looked almost perfectly straight. And this one's got this real bend to it. So I think what I want to do is I want to take that tube out. So I'm going to have to remove these 4 screws. Oh, I did it again. Snapped another screw. This one came out relatively easily, which led me to believe that maybe it wasn't going to be seized in there, that these weren't that stuck. And this one started to go and then snapped. So I'm going to have to heat the other ones up. Alright, now I got all the screws out. I'm going to carefully lift this up so I can see how the check valve is in there. It should just be 2 pieces, a plastic piece and a spring, I think. See all the debris in there. There's the spring, and there's the check valve. So that's it. So now I take, let's see, get this junk out of there. Alright, so now that's cleaned out somewhat. Boy, there isn't much of a hole there. So it lets a little tiny bit of water leak through, unless the check valve's activated. Alright, so now here's the tube. You can see that flared stuff right behind there. That's what's left of a grommet. This tube is not supposed to be pushed up as far as it is. And what happened there is, when they were exerting all that force of forcing the gear case on and bending this tube, they also caused it to push up out into here. So now I've got to get this tube out of this piece. See if I can straighten the tube, which is probably going to be near impossible, but I'll give it a shot. And I got to take it out anyways, because I'm either going to straighten it or replace it. And then I got this grommet in here. I'm going to put a new grommet in. Alright, here's what I did. First I had tried pushing this tube back down in from this side so that it was all the way in. And it wouldn't go all the way in, because when they had forced the tube up, it damaged this grommet, and the grommet was stuck like this. But I'll tell you, when I forced it down as far as I could, the tube was only about a 1/4 inch short at that point. And I realized that, boy, if this had gone all the way in and the tube was straightened out, it probably would be okay. Further confirming my suspicions that this tube was never cut. It was just completely damaged by them forcing it in. So what I did was I brought it in here and I cleaned it up as, give it a, got most of the heavy grease off, because every time I would pick up this thing and touch it with my fingers, it would turn, my hands were black with grease. So I cleaned this up, and then I used this part right here, which actually this is a wrist pin from that old diesel 353 engine. I kept this along with other odds and ends, on things that I've taken apart. And I just kind of keep them handy for like when I'm trying to press something and I need a sleeve or something like that. So anyways, that's good hard steel thing to pound on. So I just slid that over this end here and basically just tapped it and pushed this thing all the way down. And once I got it out, once I've got the tube out, now that I have the tube out, the grommet, what's left of it, comes out. And you can see how torn up that is. So now with the grommet out, I should be able to easily reinsert this tube. And now you can see how that's supposed to go in. It's supposed to drop down in pretty far. So now if I were to actually put this back on the outboard sticking up, I could probably get a better idea of the length. But before I do that, I'm going to try using the flat floor here. I'm going to try and tap away at this thing and see if I can't straighten it out a lot more. Boy, it's still pretty horrid because the problem is that, you know, you try and tap on it to find a high spot and all you end up doing is squashing the tube some. So it's kind of like I've got to tap it just gentle enough to try and straighten it without pounding it, you know, too badly. There's a big divot there. I didn't put that one in, but needless to say, it's there. But it's actually a lot straighter than it was. So now for giggles, let's see how it looks on the machine. Alright, so what I've done now is I've reinserted this back in. And if I tip this, if I hold this up like this, and I kind of get it in the general area where it's supposed to be pointed, you'll see that now my tubes are pretty much the same size. So I think what I want to do now is maybe just try and fix the very damaged end there. You see how that's got a big puck in it right there? Might be able to find some sort of a mandrel or form or something that I can push that down on and try and make that round again. Well, the ratchet extension actually seems to fit the ID of this copper tubing that I have perfectly, and it's got this edge here. So first I'm going to try and see whether or not I can straighten out that end there by driving this into it. If that doesn't work, maybe I should just get a new piece of copper tube. And the reason why I was worried about doing that was because recreating this flare on the end here, I don't have a pipe flaring tool. But lo and behold, I'm just wondering whether or not if I actually drove the pipe down onto this, would that bevel on the air and on this actually flare it? I can do an experiment trying that too, just for the heck of it. But first, let's drive that into here and see what happens. Now, a minute ago, I couldn't even get this to go in. Now, I drove it in, and then I put this on a hard surface and kind of banged it all around. And what I ended up doing was making that, well, a little more work, and that might be relatively round. Heck yeah, that's round. Or round enough, I should say, because that's actually going to go into a grommet, and the grommet's going to have a little bit of leeway. Battery's dying, but hopefully I can demo this before it dies. So here's my newly straightened pipe, and let's pretend I'm putting the gear case in, and it goes in like that and gets down in there and seals, theoretically, right? How far is that going in? Oh yeah, it went in that far. Beautiful. Alright, now I also made this a little bit, corrected the out of roundness of this some, but I'm going to put some lube on here and put one of the new grommets on. I scraped some of that corrosion out, but I've got to clean it up better than that. There we go, that's a lot better. Now I'll lube the outside of that grommet and we'll put it in. Grommet doesn't allow the pipe to go in far enough, in my opinion, and that's